Cognitive biases can deeply affect our emotional state, our perceptions and, in turn, our decision-making. Here are 6 common cognitive biases. The status quo bias. This is a belief or preference to keep things the way they are, even if a change would provide better options. It can result in putting things off or failing to make a time-sensitive decision, because it is simply easier to live with the status quo. An example might be sticking with your current cable or satellite provider despite a better offer elsewhere. Confirmation bias. This bias leads people to gather only information that is self-serving, or that supports firmly held beliefs. It can influence how we interpret the information we gather and even how we recall this evidence, and can reinforce those firmly held attitudes or beliefs. This can lead to an echo chamber effect, where we only receive information that confirms our views. On the flip side of this, in an ideal world, rational people who encounter new evidence that contradicts their beliefs would evaluate the facts and change their views accordingly. But that's generally not how things work in the real world. Partly to blame is a cognitive bias called belief perseverance that can take hold when people encounter evidence that runs counter to their beliefs. Instead of reevaluating what they've believed up until now, people tend to reject the incompatible evidence. A narrow framing bias convinces us that a problem has only one solution. This limits our search for more evidence or more pertinent information that could likely be used to build alternative solutions. An example of narrow framing bias might be that there is only one way to stop the flow of drugs into the U.S., which is to close the southern border. Short-term emotional bias. This bias gets in the way of a rational examination of the risks, the rewards, the costs, or the long-term results of a decision. Our short-term emotion is interested in the here and now, or what we strongly feel should happen. For example, investing in a stock that you know is risky, but has seen rapid growth and you don't want to be left out. In other words, short-term emotional bias can invoke a fear of missing out. Overconfidence bias results in overestimating our ability to do something, misjudging the odds that a solution will be effective, or miscalculating the reaction of others. Overconfidence bias often occurs after we make an initial decision, in that we tend to fall in love with our choice. Progression bias is a tendency to make decisions that sustain relationships rather than dissolve them. A recent study suggests that people are far less selective than they might think, and that biological and social factors tend to make pro-relationship decisions easier for us than choosing to break up.